West Memphis 3, Walk Free by Mike Douglas from the Evening Times in West Memphis. Publisher's note: a story such as this can be best told from those who were most closely affected. We would like to thank publisher Alex Coulter with the Evening Times of West Memphis for allowing us to publish this piece. Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly Jr. enjoyed their first weekend outside of a prison cell in 18 years after a plea deal set the trio, known as the West Memphis Three, credited them for time served and released them. The three dressed in sports coats and slacks. Miskelly was the only one of the three wearing a necktie. Baldwin and Eccles wore dress shirts with collars open. The defendants quietly entered the Jonesboro courtroom Friday at around 11:15 a.m. following a one-hour hearing behind closed doors with Circuit Judge David Laser to make sure, in the judge's word, that each man understood what they were pleading to and the potential consequences. Judge Laser accepted their plea deals under a deal called an Alford plea that allowed the men to enter guilty pleas yet maintain their innocence. They also told the judge that on the advice of their counsel, that by entering the pleas, they would be avoiding the risk of a higher penalty if a second trial was granted. The plea allows a defendant to profess innocence because it is in his best interest to do so, but in the plea still carries the same legal weight as a regular guilty plea. In entering the pleas, the trio waived their right to a jury trial or an appeal. Eccles and Baldwin pleaded guilty to the 3 modified counts of first-degree murder, while Miskelly pleaded guilty to 1 modified count of first-degree murder and 2 counts of second-degree murder. The charges were reduced from the capital murder charges they were found guilty of in 1994 in connection with the deaths of 3 8-year-olds, Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers. Judge Laser accepted Eccles, Baldwin's, and Miskelly's guilty plea with their profession of innocence and said none would be returned to the custody of the Arkansas Department of Corrections. Judge Laser placed Eccles, Baldwin, and Miskelly on 10 years suspended imposition, a probationary period. They will not have to report to a probation officer, and their travel will not be restricted, but the judge cautioned them that any failure to comply with the terms of the probation could result in an additional 21 years, 287 days in prison. The plea also makes it very difficult for the defendants to sue the state, although it does not prohibit them from profiting from the ordeal. Judge Laser questioned each defendant individually before they entered their plea. Each maintained their innocence but agreed to the deal as one of expedience, the quickest, cleanest way to escape life sentences, or for Eccles, a death sentence. As Judge Laser read his cautionary statement to the defendants, Steve Branch, the father of one of the murdered children, interrupted the proceedings, yelling, "Judge, you are wrong. You are opening a Pandora's box for every prisoner on death row." Several Jonesboro policemen and court bailiffs escorted Branch from the courtroom. He could still be heard yelling outside the fourth floor courtroom, "You can't shut me up. This is wrong." Another spectator was escorted from the courtroom when he interrupted the hearing. As the 3 defendants left the courtroom, another spectator called them baby killers. "I know this won't answer all the questions. I don't expect it to," said Judge Laser after Eccles, Baldwin, and Miskelly had left the courtroom. "I also know this won't make the pain go away for the families. This has been a tragedy for all sides. This has been an unusual case and an unusual disposition. Today's proceedings allows the defendants the freedom of speech to say they are innocent, but the fact is they just pled guilty. I strongly believe the interests of justice have been served here today," prosecuting attorney Scott Ellington said during the court proceedings. Ellington said the deal preserves the case's 1994 guilty verdicts. "On behalf of the state, I have preserved the verdicts of those juries and averted more prolonged and costly trials and appeals in this case," Ellington said. "The legal triangle known as the West Memphis 3 case is finished. They will be free men on suspended sentences. I hope and pray they have been rehabilitated. Only time will tell as to whether this was the right decision on my part." Ellington said that Judge Laser was likely to grant a new trial in December, and the state believes these defendants could very easily have been acquitted. Eccles' attorney, Dennis P. Riordan, had a different view of the deal worked out over the last 2 weeks, after attorneys for the 3 defendants broached the idea with prosecutors. "These men not only walked out, they created today by this plea, to me, proof positive of their innocence and the state's recognition of it. Does anyone believe that if the state had even the slightest continuing conviction that they were guilty, they would have let these men go free?" Riordan said that what the state was agreeing to was there was such compelling new evidence of DNA along with all the evidence that no reasonable jury would convict these defendants. "I think it's an implicit recognition by the state that this is the finding that would have been made at the hearing in December. Judge Laser had ordered an evidentiary hearing for December that was expected to lead to an order of new trials for Eccles, Baldwin, and Miss Kelly. During a press conference following the hearing, Baldwin said, "This is not justice. They are not out there trying to find who killed the 3 boys." Baldwin said he relented to pleading guilty in consideration of his friend Eccles, who would have remained on death row and faced possible execution if the deal fell through. At the press conference, he said he was not completely pleased with the deal and almost did not go through with it, but feared for his friend Eccles' life. "This was not justice," Baldwin said. "In the beginning, we told nothing but the truth, that we were innocent and that they sent us to prison for the rest of our lives for it. We had come here, and the only thing the state would do for us is say, 'Hey, we will let you go only if you admit guilt,' and that is not justice any way you look at it. They're not out there trying to find who really murdered those boys, and I did not want to take the deal from the get-go. However, they are trying to kill Damien, and sometimes you just got to bite the gun to save somebody." "It's not perfect," Eccles said at the press conference. "It's not perfect by any means, but at least it brings closure to some areas and some aspects." Eccles added that he was still very much in shock and still overwhelmed. "We can still bring up new evidence. We can still continue the investigations we have been doing," said Eccles. "We can still try to clear our names. The only difference is now we can do it from the outside instead of having to sit in prison and do it." After 18 years, Eccles said it wasn't difficult for him to come to the decision to agree to the plea deal. At the time of their arrest, Baldwin was 16, Miss Kelly was 17, and Eccles 18. Eccles and Miss Kelly are now 36, and Baldwin is 34. Judge Laser asked each man what their level of education was. Eccles said he had dropped out of school in the 9th grade, but has earned his GED. Baldwin dropped out of school in 10th grade, earned his GED and some college credits while imprisoned. Miss Kelly dropped out of school in the 9th grade and did not pursue any further education while in prison. DNA testing was not available at the time of the defendants' 1994 trials. In 2007, DNA collected at the crime scene did not match that belonging to any of the 3 men. In November 2010, the state Supreme Court ruled that all 3 could present new evidence in court. John Mark Byers, the father of one of the children killed in 1993, said he believes Eccles, Baldwin, and Miss Kelly are innocent, adding that he is angry with the way the pleas are being handled. "This is not right, and the people of Arkansas need to stand up and raise hell. Just because they have admitted to it today, it's not over," Byers said. Since their incarceration, the trio has been the subject of 3 documentaries, one of which is scheduled to be released in November. The 3 men have had a long list of celebrity supporters, including the Dixie Chicks, Eddie Vedder, Johnny Depp, and Metallica. Baldwin and Eccles, along with Eccles' wife, spent Friday night celebrating their freedom in a luxury hotel in Memphis with the above celebrities, bodyguards, and their attorneys. They are now at an undisclosed location. Miss Kelly returned to his parents' home in Highland Park to celebrate with family and friends. Eccles said he will not return to Arkansas. Miss Kelly said he will seek a job on a farm in Earl, but may also leave Arkansas for California. Baldwin has not revealed his future plans. Again, thank you to the Evening Times in West Memphis for the story, and thank you for listening to Spring River Chronicle, audio on the go. Be sure to subscribe by scanning our ScanScribe code on the front page and enter your credit card information to make sure you get the Spring River Chronicle in your mailbox every week. Thanks for listening to Spring River Chronicle, audio on the go.